we did a poll Monday. Biggest issue with the Panthers' loss in Jacksonville. And I gave 3 options plus other. I didn't do all of the above. Bryce, the defense, Dave Canales. Bryce was the first choice, 36, defense 27, Dave 29%. Others gave us 8. Most of that was all of the above, which I think is a cop-out, but whatever. What would you answer to that poll question?
First of all, what's up, bruh? That game on Sunday was Ohio, as the kids say. No, I'm kidding. That's really lame. Good to be with you, brother. That poll's wild to me because I think it should go largely in reverse order. I think that the coaching staff did not have that team prepared to play. They were unprepared, disorganized. I thought the defense was atrocious. More stats coming out this morning that I've seen about the Jacksonville offensive line being damn near perfect on Sunday because the Panthers and all that money they spent on the defensive front could muster absolutely 0 pass rush, 0 sacks on the day. And I thought Bryce, while not good, was light years better than he was. And this was not last year's opener against the Saints where he contributed nothing and, looked lost and helpless. Bryce made some great throws on Sunday. Now, he ruined it all by turning the football over. There's no question about that. But I would go in reverse order. I start with the head coach, then I go to the defense, and then I go to Bryce.
Kyle Bailey is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. 6 quarterback pressures all game for the Panthers' defensive unit because it's not just the defensive line. 6 pressures all game. They made Trevor Lawrence's life easy in the game, and he didn't have to do a lot because there was 200 yards rushing. So I'm going to skip to the head coach because I was going to save that for a little bit later because I do want to talk about Bryce with you. I listened to the interview with the coach's show, and the question about the defense giving up, they stayed away from the 7th straight game that they have allowed at least 200 yards rushing. In the NFL, this ain't Big 10, Big 8 football where teams are rushing for 300 yards a game. It is alarming to allow 7 straight games. That's ridiculous. And he talked about, we missed tackles. Everybody misses tackles. There were not enough players in the area to turn what might have been a loss of 1 into a gain of 5. They were turning a loss of 1, possibly one guy missing a tackle, and it's 15 yards. Or it's 71 to Travis Etienne, who was on my fantasy team all last year. I'm not sure he gained 71 yards rushing all season. So, to me, it was the lack of bodies around the ball carriers that spoke volumes to me. They were easily blocked.
Oh, yeah. No, they weren't just missing tackles. They were out of position, to your point. And listen, I'll point out, as you did a moment ago, 71 of the 200 rushing yards they allowed came on one play. That's a real thing. But here's an additional stat for you, which I'm sure you've probably seen. It's not just the 7 straight games of 200-plus rushing yards allowed, which is a war crime in the NFL, but in 35 games of Ejiro Evero as defensive coordinator, 26 of those 35 games, his defenses have given up at least 120 rushing yards. 26 of 35 games. So this is their identity now. This is who they are. And so he can point to it and say, we missed tackles. Well, of course you did, but you do that professionally now. We become accustomed to that, and we were told, and some of us even were willing to, accept, hey, you had no personnel last year. Guys were hurt. It already wasn't a very talented defense. Dan Morgan said, I've got to get EJ some players, and he was right. Well, now they've gotten him some players, and the result in week 1 anyway looked to be the exact same. And so you said it, 6 total quarterback pressures, which is just abysmal. And then not to change the subject, but on the flip side, on the offensive line with Icky out, Yosh Nijman gave up 6 pressures himself at the left tackle position. So up front, I don't want to paint too broadly because Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis and Taylor Moton, 3 of the 5 offensive linemen graded out really well, but they just had way too many problems along the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football.
Yeah, they couldn't snap the ball either, and I don't know, I'm sure you have because this is what you do. Dan Orlovsky put out a really good, I think, helpful video, right? I'm sure you saw it.
Yep.
And he was critical of Bryce, But it was also critical of Bryce with the caveat that Dan Orlovsky knows that Bryce is better than this. So it wasn't like being critical of Bryce and saying he can't play. And a lot of it had to do with, in Orlovsky's mind, he did mention the snaps. Austin Corbett had a rough day snapping the ball to Bryce Young. And so it was partly that. And it was also partly, it seemed to Orlovsky, that whatever they've done in the offseason and into the preseason to change the way Bryce drops back, to kind of refine some things, he's still kind of working through it in his brain. And that it caused him to be late on some throws. And I don't think it was all that, but it caused him to be late on some throws. And when you're late in the NFL, it's over. You don't have the time that you had in college.
100%. Well, Dave Canales has said it, to your point. Dave, day one, the opening press conference, talked about how important it was to tie the offense and what they do to the footwork of the quarterback. 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drops. This is all based on time, most of the time. And so, I saw Orlovsky's breakdown. It was great. There was some sloppiness in Bryce's footwork, no doubt. It also immediately took me back to the Diana Rossini, Joe Person post-mortem article on the Frank Reich era, and that now infamous quote about how, we'll work on his footwork next year, which blew my mind at the time and still does to this day. But, he's had some muddy footwork at times, but then you factor in the Corbett thing was so out of left field. The fact that not only could he not get a clean snap off, 50% of the time, his pass protection grade was historically bad, 27. He was awful, all across the board. And so that throws off timing. When Bryce is catching snaps one-handed, 8 inches above his head, it's naturally going to throw off his footwork, which is going to throw off the play in the way that he sees the field. So listen, I'm not Bill Parcells. I don't talk down to people when it comes to the X's and O's of football, but I've seen a lot of football, covered a lot of football, and you spend time around these guys, you learn a thing or two. And when you watch individual plays, like the underthrow to Hunter Renfrow on that wheel route that could have gone for a touchdown,
exactly.
When you go back and watch it, as Orlovsky did, not only was the snap high, as Bryce is trying to step into that throw, Yosh Nijman allows one of his many pressures on the day, and Bryce has a defender in his lap and is unable to step into that throw. So, this is why the coaches' press conferences on Monday are far more useful than Sunday, because people have seen the tape, they know what actually happened, and it's why I think criticism of Bryce is absolutely justified all the time, but especially coming out of Saturday. If he wants to keep turning the football over, he can go play for somebody else. Turnovers are unacceptable. But he did not play near as badly as some people would have you believe.
Yeah, I wish Dave Canales, especially because I listened to the coaches show on Monday night, the only person he called out was Bryce. He didn't call out Xavier Legette for not getting a second foot down, which 2 plays later led to the Bryce Young careless fumble. What percentage of NFL wide receivers get 2 feet down on that particular pass?
99.993%.
Yeah.
It was he had half an acre to get his feet down. That was just so egregious. And I tend to be. You've known me a long time. I'm not the overreactionary, looking for attention type. I defended XL this summer because it seemed to me that he had his head in it. He understood where he fell short last year. He had been working on things. And that mistake is bad enough. But then when you compound that in a tight formation in a short yardage situation, when your team needs you to block, you're not split out wide to the field 6 inches from the sideline. You are in tight in the formation, and you're in a short yardage play, a run play. Cuba's trying to pick up a first down. You can't be bothered to put a hat on the guy, the DB who comes up and makes the stop and stops him short of the line to gain. Get off the football field. I thought Mark Schlereth ripped him appropriately. What are you out there for if you can't be bothered to do those things? So for anybody who's out on XL after that singular performance, I don't blame them a bit, because that to me was egregious.
I was stunned, and I was stunned at how many people tried to defend him. And by the way, I give Tepper McMillan a ton of credit for calling himself out on the pass to the end zone that he said he should have caught. Next time he will go up with 2 hands. I caught hell on Twitter for saying, how do you not go up with 2 hands for that? There was a play to be made. Was his arm tugged a little bit? Yeah, but he had already made the decision to go up one-handed. So I give him credit for recognizing it. Nobody else talked about it. Dave Canales didn't talk about it. They're giving a lot of people a pass. I have my own thoughts about Dave Canales having a preconceived notion about Bryce Young from last year that I'm not going to get away from until it's proven otherwise. I don't think Canales really has confidence in Bryce. I think that's why he calls plays the way he does for Bryce. I think Young is really good throwing the ball over the middle, and I don't think they do it enough. I really don't, and I think
I think Dave's got his own issues too. I mean, I think Dave's got confidence issues not just in Bryce but in himself.
Okay.
When you step to a podium on Monday and you say, when he's asked why we got a youth movement on the offensive side but not necessarily the defensive side, and his answer is, well, I've been pushing for those guys to play more. I'm sorry, you're the head coach. You don't push for anything. Do you think any coordinator or position coach does anything other than what Jim Harbaugh tells them to do with the LA Chargers? I mean, so, I like Dave. I think he's an energetic, smart young guy, and I wish him the best, and I hope he wins a ton of games here. And we're talking about inducting him into the Hall of Honor in 5 or 6 years. But right now he's got some real questions to answer, and I don't know about the confidence level in Bryce. It sure seemed like they opened up the playbook considerably down the stretch last year when he played so well. And you're right. He throws the ball well over the middle of the field. He's great out in space. And that's another complaint that I think fans rightly have. Multiple timeouts before the play clock expired on Sunday. You can't get the play in. You're running the play clock down to 2 or 1 seconds every single time, not only allowing the defense to get set, but rushing your quarterback on top of that. That's Dave. He's the play caller. Yeah. Well, you've got to get the play call in faster. That's on Dave. So that's why I think they ought to be humiliated this week that they operated that way as a staff going into year 2, and they got thoroughly outcoached by a staff making its debut together in the NFL regular season. That's embarrassing.
Final question for Kyle Bailey. And there were a lot of other things I wanted to talk about, but this was too good. Do you think, now we can't prove it, do you think more preseason game reps would have helped?
Of course. They would have helped certain guys. And if you're worried about your quarterback being in rhythm, I don't know. Give him some more plays out there. I've never in my life come after that Houston game when you hear a head coach, well, I just didn't think those guys played well enough to deserve more opportunities. So we said, what are you talking about?
I said the same thing.
What are you talking about? Like that, you've never heard a coach say that before for good reason. If your guys aren't playing well, you run them back out there and you make them prove something. And maybe they don't, but I have never in my life heard a coach say, well, I just didn't think they earned the opportunity to go back out there. Well, I mean, if things keep trending this way, you're not going to earn a third year on the job. Like he talked a whole big game about learning from last year's preseason, not playing the starters. Yeah. They wanted extra joint practice time with the Houston Texans. And then every single time when the opportunity presented itself deeper into the preseason to get those guys more reps and opportunities, they opted not to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to prove it, emphatically with empirical data that it matters. But logically, the only reason to play your guys in the preseason is to get them ready for the regular season. So there must be some benefit to it. And if we're worried about injury, didn't Jalen Coker get hurt in practice? Right?
Correct.
He hurt his quad in practice. Maybe we shouldn't practice either if it's an injury fear. Kyle Bailey at Kyle Bailey Club, WFNZ in Charlotte. I appreciate your time, my friend. We'll do it again, maybe more frequently than every 8 months.
Happy to do it, brother. Good to talk to you.
Later. It's Kyle Bailey here on the Adam Gold Show.